Hey everyone, it's Jen with Pretty Little Garden, and in today's video I just wanted to give you an update on my dahlias. I am a beginner dahlia grower. This is my first experience with dahlias, and I wanted to record my experiences and share them with you. I'm a home gardener. I'm located in Zone 6B, Western New York, and like I said, this is my first year with dahlias. I purchased my dahlia tubers from Dutch Grown. I purchased them online back in the winter time, late winter I think it was. I ended up selecting several dinner plate dahlias. You know, I just was sort of taken with the photos. My tubers that I ordered from Dutch Grown actually came in right before we were going away for a week. So I think they came in 2 days before we left for our trip. And so I was kind of scrambling to figure out what to do, but I ended up putting them in paper bags in my garage, taking them out of the box and even out of the soil that they were in, and just putting them in paper bags with a paper towel in between them. And that seemed to work fine while we were away. And came home, they sat in my garage in those paper bags for quite some time. Life just gets busy sometimes. And as the weather started to warm up, I realized I needed to really address them and get them moving in the right direction. So I ended up, inspecting all of my dahlia tubers, cutting off any of the parts that were not good. Your healthy dahlia tuber should have, your healthy dahlia plant should have an intact, firm, sorry, Lucy is right down here and she's wanting me to pet her. If you hear her panting, I'm sorry. Anyways, your dahlia needs to have a tuber which is intact. It doesn't have to be big. It can be skinny and long or fat and plump, but it has to be firm. You don't want a mushy tuber. And then at the top of the tuber, it has to have a neck, which is just the skinny part that attaches to the stem or the thick part at the top. The skinny neck has to have intact tissue. You just don't want it to be broken or cracked or floppy, because that indicates that the neck is broken and that you've lost your tuber essentially. And the neck is then connected to the stem part. It's actually the old stem from last year. Along that stem area right above the neck, you're usually able to locate what's called the eye, and it's like a little bumpy knob. And you have to have all those three parts, the tuber, the neck, and the eye, all attached with your stem, that old stem, in order for your tuber to be viable. Hey guys, I'm just editing my video and I wanted to just draw the diagram of the dahlia tuber, the neck. I kind of misspoke about the crown versus the stem, so I just want to make sure I'm clear with my viewers, just so everybody understands. But you have your dahlia tuber, which looks something like this. Kind of just looks like a little potato tuber. Okay, so this is the actual tuber, and this stores the energy. This is where the energy is stored, for the growth for this year. Then you have your neck, which comes right off the top of the tuber. This is the neck. And the neck is attached to what's known as the crown, which is kind of like this section right here. And the old stem is basically right above that. So this is like the old stem, we'll call that there, and this is considered the crown. And I just wanted to explain that because the old stem is definitely different than the crown. And then right at the crown area, that's where all of the necks will be attached. It'll be at the base of the old stem, which is the crown. And that's where you'll see like your little eyes, which is just like a little knobby growth, right? And it'll most likely be somewhere on the crown. Sometimes it can be right where the crown meets the stem. So I just wanted to clarify that. The eye, that's where you're going to get new growth. So it'll start to grow up, and that'll be your new stem for the season. So, and in order to, have a viable dahlia, you need your tuber that is firm, not soft or mushy. It has to be, then you have to have it connected to the neck. The neck area has to be intact, can't be broken or cracked. You have to have, intact tissue there, and then it has to be attached to the crown, and then somewhere on the crown it has to have an eye. And if all of those parts are intact, then you will have hopefully a viable dahlia. Just wanted to clarify that. So anyways, I went through the process of cutting out all of the, damaged, broken necks, anything that wasn't looking good. And whatever I was left with, I potted everything up, potted each one up into little containers of potting soil. And I kept them in my dining room, which is a west-facing window. And, I really didn't water them until I started to see a little bit of growth, and then I would give them just the smallest amount of water, honestly, because I didn't want them to rot, because that can be, something that happens, when you're doing your dahlias. So my dahlia tubers were all potted up on my dining room table, and they were there for a long time. Just until yesterday, actually. I just planted them out yesterday. What's today's date? Today is, I think it's July 23rd. So I planted them out yesterday, July 22nd. I believe that's the date. I'll put it on the screen if it's different, but very, very late to plant out my dahlias, but that's just when I could do it. So that's just what happened. I've been working and life has been busy, but I just never let that stop me from moving forward and continuing to learn in my garden. And I'm not going to sweat it because they're planted out a little bit later than people usually do. But I'll just tell you what I did. So they were in my dining room for quite a long time. And to be honest with you, I'm glad in a way that I waited so long to plant them out, because first and foremost, we had a very, very wet spring and early summer. We kind of just got out of a little bit of a drought this recently. We had a really hard rainfall the other day, which we really needed, but late spring, early summer, we had a lot of rain. So even if I planted them out in early June, I would be a little concerned because first of all, they didn't have the growth, a ton of growth at all. And also the ground, I have hard clay soil. The ground was so wet that I think I would have risked losing them. So, things work out. It worked out. I think this was the time they were meant to be planted. So they did take quite a while to put on some significant growth. There's still some that are not very tall. I do have several, and I'll insert some clips here. You can see, maybe I'll show you, what they looked like when I first put them out on the dining room table, and then just give you a couple of shots of what they looked like as the months went on, and most recently, what they looked like before I planted them out. Like I said, there are still several that really just have just a tiny bit of growth on them there. And in terms of ones that didn't work out, I only have one variety that neither tuber, because each variety that I purchased came with two clumps of tubers. So there were just one variety, and that was the labyrinth, that neither one of them sprouted up any growth. So they're still over there on my patio table, and I thought about just planting them out just to see what happens. But there was probably, 5 or 6 pots altogether that didn't grow anything. But of all the varieties that I bought, I had at least one clump, you know, of the two that worked out. So I was happy about that. And, you know, I'm not going to sweat about, you know, having my one variety that didn't put up any growth. I'm not going to contact Dutch Grown or anything like that, because I just feel like I'm just such a beginner that I don't know if it was something that I did in the process, something I could have done better. I'm just learning. So you know, I'll take that hit, I'll take that loss as I'm learning. As I get better at it and more seasoned, you know, I would definitely contact the company if I had tubers that didn't work out or that didn't, you know, weren't successful for me. So I just wanted to mention that as well. So I finally decided that I was going to plant them out. Things were looking good, and actually, you know, they were getting to the point where they were getting a little bit leggy, some of the longer ones, and soft. Like some of them weren't as firm. They still look super healthy though, and I'll show you what that looks like, you know, as we're planting those out. But, you know, so basically it came time to plant. So I just decided where I was going to put these dahlias. I looked at each variety. Most of them can tolerate full sun, but some of them said full sun or part sun. Most of the places that I chose were full sun. When I decided, yes, I'm going to plant the dahlias on, you know, this day, it was actually earlier in the week, and one step that I totally forgot about is the hardening off process. So I was, you know, kind of reviewing what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring them outside. We're going to plant them out. And then I thought, these dahlias have not been outside to get acclimated to any type of outdoor weather since I potted them up. So that was a concern. So I couldn't plant them out the initial day that I wanted to, which I think was Sunday or Monday of this week. Today is Thursday. Anyway, so I thought to myself, okay, let's give it a day. So I brought them out, I think it was like 9 a.m. and I let them hang out most of the day on my front porch, which was actually shade until about 1 or 2. So they were out there from like 9 a.m. until I think 3 o'clock. I brought them back in. So they got a couple of hours of sunlight once the sun made it all the way over the house and was shining in the front. They did get, you know, a couple of hours of good sunlight, brought them back inside. I think the next day I had to work and it rained incredibly much. It downpoured all day, just several times that day. So I didn't bring them outside at all on Tuesday. And then Wednesday was the day I said, you know what? I think I just need to go for it. So they had that one day of hardening off. Typically, maybe you want 2 or 3 days, you know, to get your plants acclimated to the outdoor weather, but I just said I'm going for it. So that's what I did. And basically the first 2 that I planted, I'm trying to think of the variety name. I'll put it up here, but I chose a spot right near my trellis or my arbor where I have my Generous Gardener climbing rose. And basically I just, you know, cleared. I had, you know, our garden beds are mulched, so I had to move the mulch out of the way. And your dahlia typically wants like 12 to 18 inches circumference for them to be happy and have enough room to grow. So I dug a hole, and you typically want to go about 4 to 6 inches deep. Check with, you know, each individual variety of your dahlia. Some say just a little bit different, you know, give or take an inch, but generally it's 4 to 6 inches deep, which was, I think, most of the varieties that I had purchased. That's what they required. So I dug a hole 4 to 6 inches deep and carefully removed my dahlia from the container. Some of them had better roots than others, but they generally all looked pretty decent. And you know, I carefully placed that dahlia into the hole. You want your old stem and the eye of your tuber, like the eye is the new growth that's coming out of, going to come out of the ground, and that's going to be your new stem for this year. So you want that kind of pointing up. It really doesn't matter if your tuber is like pointed down or to the side, because really what matters is like the eye, and you know, the eye, that new growth is like pointing upward. So that's how you place your clump in the hole. I didn't fertilize with anything. I just didn't feel the need to. I also felt like I read somewhere that dahlias can, you know, be over fertilized, that you don't want to over fertilize them. They're tender in the beginning. So I just left it to, you know, the natural fertilizers in the soil without anything added on my end. The only thing I did add was compost. I did have some land and sea compost, and I, you know, added some of that during the planting process because I felt like it could help amend some of that clay soil, make it easier for that dahlia to root in. So I did use what I had left in this one bag as much as I could with each planting. And like I said, some of my dahlias, they had some good healthy green growth, but some of them were leggy and a little bit weak or soft, not as strong stemmed because they've been inside for so long. So I made sure I staked all of my dahlias right when planting. And that's something that you want to do because your dahlia is going to grow up and need support, especially if you have an area that's quite windy. You know, your dahlias generally need support. So I purchased these 4-foot long garden stakes, and I used one garden stake with each dahlia. So I would dig my hole, I would put my clump in the hole, and I would immediately place that stake so I knew where it was. You don't want to wait too long to do that because you risk, you know, if you did it afterwards or a few days later, you could sort of forget where that specific clump actually was, and you could damage your tuber. So I inserted my garden stake right away, and I also purchased little terracotta pots. I actually have one right here, little terracotta pots, and I just, you know, put this right on top of my garden stake, and that's just to prevent, you know, anybody from getting injured with like a stake sticking up out of the ground. You just want to kind of protect that top. So yeah, I put one of those on each, and I had a little bit of garden string, and I didn't do that for all of them, but for the stems, the new growth that was leggy or soft or weak, not as strong, I gently tied that to the garden stake just to help it get started. I labeled them all, and yeah, I think we're on our way. I came out the next day, which is this morning, and I'll show you what they look like from this morning. I just took a short clip. Should we go check on the dahlias? Let's go check on these dahlias, Lucy. Come on out. Come on out. Here we go. Okay, it's the next day after I planted the dahlias up, and let's just see how we're looking here. Yeah, this is going to be a good bed for them to be in. I think they're looking pretty good, the ones I can see. Yeah, I feel like they look like they're happy. Like they're glad to finally be in the ground. And you can see I just tied those dahlias up that were a little bit, you know, leggy and soft. They were sort of falling over. I just tied them up with a soft piece of string just to give them a little support. And let's go over here and just look at the other two. Oh, 3. Here's one here. This is Raspberry Puff. I would say looking pretty good, looking pretty happy. And the other 2 I just put here. They should be getting some sun once it comes up over the birch tree there. So yeah. Take off. So glad I finally got them in the ground. So that is where I'm at with my dahlia journey. So I'll be sure to continue to share. And I have included all of these videos about dahlias, you know, from the purchasing to the storing to, you know, the pruning of my dahlia tubers to get rid of any broken necks. All of that process I've included in a playlist, and I'll make sure to, you know, attach that to the description box in case you are interested. And if you have any tips for me or any encouragement or advice, or if you just want to share about how your dahlias are doing, please do so in the comments. I really love to interact with you in the comments, and I love to hear how you are doing in your gardens as well. So that is all for today. I'll be sure to update you as they grow and as they bloom especially, and I'm looking forward to sharing all of that with you. Thank you so much, and I will see everyone really soon. Have a great day.